The universe has a cruel sense of humor. One moment I was planning to storm out of the library after yet another pointless argument, and the next I realized I was locked inside with him. Of all people, it had to be him, Ethan Carter, my rival since freshman year. The boy who always had a sharper comeback, a higher grade, a faster mile on the track. And now, as the heavy library doors clanged shut and the echo swallowed us both, I understood one undeniable truth. I was trapped with my worst enemy until morning. He smirked when the reality set in, the kind of smirk that always made my blood boil. "Guess it's just you and me, Logan," he said, dragging out every syllable as if savoring my misery. I wanted to snap back. I wanted to tell him I'd rather sleep on the cold library floor than share a single breath of space with him. But then his expression faltered, just slightly, when he tugged on the door again and realized it really was locked. That tiny flicker of vulnerability was enough to keep me quiet. For once, he wasn't in control. The silence between us stretched thin, filled with the hum of the fluorescent lights above and the muffled sound of rain against the tall windows. I sank into one of the armchairs, hugging my backpack like it was a shield, while Ethan paced like a caged animal. "Relax," I muttered. "It's just a night." He shot me a glare sharp enough to slice through glass. "Easy for you to say. You probably live for this crap. Surrounded by books. No one to bother you. Safe in your little nerd kingdom." I clenched my jaw. Same old Ethan, always throwing daggers at the softest part of me. "At least I don't need an audience to validate my existence," I shot back. For a second, I thought he'd explode. Instead, he surprised me by laughing a low, rough laugh that didn't sound anything like the arrogant boy I knew. It unnerved me. It made something inside me shift. Hours passed slowly. We moved through the aisles of books like ghosts, pretending not to notice each other. At one point, the power flickered, plunging us into shadows before the backup lights kicked in. That's when I realized how close we were standing, shoulder to shoulder in the half-dark. I could smell his cologne clean, sharp, with a hint of something woodsy. I hated that I noticed. "Don't tell me you're scared of the dark," Ethan whispered, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "I'm not," I lied. My heart was beating too fast, not from fear, but from the unbearable awareness of him. The library was suddenly too small. Every aisle, every corner, every shelf felt like it was pushing us closer together. I told myself I still hated him. I told myself nothing had changed. But when he pulled out a flashlight from his bag and offered it to me with an awkward half-smile, I felt the edges of my anger blur. "Here," he said, "so you don't trip over your own ego in the dark." I rolled my eyes, but I took it. My fingers brushed his just for a second, just long enough to spark something electric. He noticed. I knew he did, because for once, Ethan Carter didn't have anything smug to say. We ended up sitting across from each other at one of the long wooden tables. The rain outside had grown heavier, turning the world beyond the glass into a blurry smear of gray. I caught him staring at me more than once, though he always looked away too quickly, like the truth might slip out if our eyes met for too long. Finally, I broke the silence. "Why do you hate me so much?" He blinked, caught off guard. "I could ask you the same." "Yeah, but you started it," I said, half joking, half serious. His mouth twisted into something caught between a smirk and a grimace. "Maybe because," he trailed off, running a hand through his messy hair. For once, he didn't look like the untouchable golden boy everyone worshipped. He looked human. "Because what?" I pressed. His gaze locked on mine, and for the first time since I'd known him, Ethan didn't look angry. He looked terrified. "Because it's easier to hate you than to admit He cut himself off, clenching his jaw. "Forget it." But I couldn't forget it. Not when his voice cracked on that almost confession. Not when my own chest ached with a truth I'd buried for years. The storm raged outside, but the real storm was here, between us. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted to escape it. The storm outside began to fade into a soft drizzle, but inside the library, the storm between us was only growing louder. Ethan had left something hanging in the air unfinished, heavy, dangerous. I wanted to demand the truth, but I was terrified of what it might mean if he actually said it. We sat in silence for what felt like hours. I kept replaying his words in my head. It's easier to hate you than to admit I admit what? That he respected me? That he secretly liked having me around to push him? Or something else, something bigger? Something I couldn't even let myself hope for? The clock on the wall ticked past midnight. The fluorescent lights hummed above, and the smell of old paper and dust wrapped around us. I leaned back in my chair, staring at him as if the answer might be written somewhere on his face. And then he looked up, caught me watching, and didn't look away this time. "Logan," he said softly, my name breaking apart in his mouth like it wasn't meant to be spoken that way. "Do you ever get tired of pretending?" "Pretending what?" My voice was steadier than I felt. "That you don't notice me," he whispered. My breath hitched. Suddenly the library felt unbearably warm. I tried to laugh, tried to shove the tension away. "You're impossible not to notice. You make sure of it every damn day." But Ethan shook his head, his eyes sharp and vulnerable all at once. "That's not what I mean, and you know it." I froze, because I did know. I had known for years, buried under every insult, every sarcastic smile, every race where we ran neck and neck. Underneath it all, there had been something else. Something neither of us could name without risking everything. He stood, restless, pacing near the window. His reflection blurred against the glass, the city lights outside turning him into a ghost of himself. "Do you think I enjoy this? Acting like I can't stand you when all I've ever wanted was—" His voice broke. "You drive me insane, Logan. Not because I hate you, but because I don't." The words landed like a thunderclap. My heart thrashed against my ribs, begging me to move, to say something, to do something. Instead, I just sat there, stunned, my whole world tilting on its axis. Ethan Carter, my rival, my tormentor, my shadow didn't hate me. He wanted me. I rose slowly, my legs unsteady. "You're saying—" "I'm saying I can't keep doing this," he cut in, his fists clenched at his sides. "I can't keep pretending that the reason I look for you in every hallway, or that I push myself to beat you, is just about competition. It's not. It never was." The air was too thick. I could barely breathe. Every wall I'd built around myself was crumbling, brick by brick, under the weight of his confession. "Ethan," I whispered, but my throat tightened around the rest. He turned toward me, his eyes bright, fierce, desperate. "If you're going to hate me for it, just do it now. Tell me I'm disgusting. Tell me this ruins everything, and I'll shut up. But I swear to God, Logan, if I don't say this tonight, I'll regret it for the rest of my life." I could see him trembling, not from fear of being trapped in a library, but from fear of me. Fear of what I might do with his heart now that he had finally handed it over. And suddenly I knew. I knew I couldn't let him stand there, drowning in shame for something I'd felt too. I closed the space between us, one step, then another, until we were so close I could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "You think I don't feel it too?" I said, my voice shaking. "You think I haven't been fighting the same war inside myself every damn day?" He stared at me like he didn't dare believe it. "Logan." Before I lost my courage, I reached up and grabbed the front of his hoodie, pulling him down into me. The kiss was clumsy, desperate, more of a collision than anything graceful. But it was real, and it burned through me like wildfire. For a moment he didn't move. Then he let out a broken sound, half relief, half hunger, and kissed me back with everything he'd been holding back for years. My knees nearly gave out under the force of it. His hands framed my face, rough but careful, like I was something fragile he was terrified of breaking. When we finally pulled apart, both of us breathless, I laughed sharp, disbelieving, terrified. "God, we're screwed." Ethan smiled for real then, not the cocky smirk I was used to, but something softer, something that made my chest ache. "Maybe, but at least we're screwed together." The rest of the night blurred into something dreamlike. We didn't sleep. We talked in low voices, sprawled out on the library carpet between shelves, confessions spilling out of us like secrets we could no longer keep. He told me about the pressure of always being perfect, about the nights he lay awake wondering why the only person he couldn't stop thinking about was the one he was supposed to hate. I told him about the loneliness of always being second best, about how his presence lit a fire in me I both craved and resented. By the time the sun began to bleed into the windows, everything between us had changed. The rivalry was still there, sure, but it had been remade into something softer, something sharper all at once. Something that didn't feel like hate anymore. When the janitor finally unlocked the doors at dawn, we walked out together. Not rivals, not enemies. Something new, fragile, and dangerous, but ours. He glanced at me as we stepped into the cold morning air, his hand brushing against mine. So, what now? I thought about all the complications waiting for us outside those library doors. The rumors, the stares, the weight of living in a world that didn't always make room for boys like us. But then I thought about the way his lips had felt against mine, the way his voice had cracked when he confessed, the way my heart had finally stopped aching after years of pretending. I laced my fingers with his holding on tight. Now, I said, smiling despite everything, we stop pretending. He squeezed my hand, his smile shaky but real. And as the morning light washed over us, I realized the cruel joke the universe had played wasn't cruel at all. It had locked me in with my rival, only to show me he was never my rival at all. He was the boy I was always meant to find. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.